Okay, quick intro to the Gold Fastback video. The whole purpose was to see how quickly I could do a acceptable job, which was a bit more effort than just rollering some gold paint over the primered bits. You'll see as it starts off from how it was before, through the prep, painting it, and then a bit of lacquer, and as it is now. So that will follow on shortly. Look out soon as well. I will be doing that Hunter GLS. The welding's practically all done, and it's going to be painted from bare metal inside and out. See you soon. Let me know on this if you think it was worth it in the comments, and what you would have done differently with your money. Okay, now I did some work on this, well, the apprentice did about 3 years ago. Welded some few bits in the seals, did that bottom patch on the wing, a couple of other rods and sods. Just sanded some rough edges down, painted it with epoxy primer, which hasn't actually lasted too bad, seeing as it's been on there, I think it was about 2001, so probably 3-4 years. So the remit was, I was just going to paint these bits gold, and then I thought, well, while we're at it, we got these other little rust patches gold, and then I thought, well, you need to do that gold. And by the time it painted most of it, I thought, well, I might as well toss over the whole car, but I'm not really in a position to spend like loads of money on it. So I'm going to do an experiment. I've bought 2 litres of base coat paint. No, was it? Yeah, 2 litres of base coat. Should be gloss. With thinners, that makes about 3 litres. Just gonna remove the easy bits, take the bumpers off and the trim, sand these bits down, treat the areas with some rust treatment, and then literally maybe put a tiny skimmer thinner over some of these bits, or just sand them flat and then toss it over. The idea is to see how sort of quickly I can do, basically paint it all one colour and find out, was it worth the effort versus the cost? So we shall see. So I got it in on the ramp as it was a few years ago. I'm going to put a new windscreen rubber in it, and despite the looks of that, this didn't actually leak. Anyway, so that's going to come out. This is where quick jobs turn into medium jobs that turn into more involved stuff. But I've got to do something about that, so really got to get that trim off, got to get the door card off. So I'm probably just going to try and take these lower trims off, peel this off, tape around the windows. Yeah, go from there. Probably have to take that handle off as well. Sand off bits like this. So I will be adding up how many hours, like man hours, is spent doing the bits and pieces. Right, so far it's probably just been about an hour or so taking this trim off and both bumpers and the rear lights. Sand this down. Right, one thing I noticed, I don't know why I didn't do it before last time when it was in here, is that this front has been sort of crunched in at some point, because this headlamp was massively adjusted because it's all like kinked down. I'll see if I can just push this out with the Porta Power. So we're going to get something a bit sharper just to go through these, but a lot of the rest of it is just going to be a once over. Just sort of key it up. You can see it's been painted before. Go goes through. Like I said, the remit is to just try and get it one colour tidy. Using the old bits of rubber to pick up the bits that are around it, and bits of bitumen that someone shoved in there to seal it. Anyway, we clean all this up with thinners. Right, you can see the various coats under here. This is a little crack. There's filler underneath, filler on top. This is one of these things where you just do a quick job and it turns into loads. So there is going to be a cut-off point where, yes, it needs doing the proper way, but I can do it with somebody else's money. At the moment, this is make it flat, spend the time basically to try and just treat the rust a bit so that it won't come back immediately, and then paint it so it's relatively flat and relatively one colour. So we've quickly scuzzed these bits up. Again, keep saying, yeah, it could be done better, but time is of the essence. As in, is what I'm doing better than nothing at all? Yes. To what degree? We'll discuss it afterwards, depending on the result. Meaning, it's just to take the paint off these rusty bits. I use the wire brush to try and flick the stuff out of the pits. Like this bit on the roof is pitted. Now, ideally, you want to either sandblast that all off, or get a little die grinder and dip it all in the bits, carefully, bit by bit, so you don't heat it up. That takes a lot of time. Just with these two bits, that and the bits on the other side of the roof, you could spend 15 hours just doing the roof. Ideally, I want to spend 15 hours doing the entire car, these bits and all. Might be a laugh, but still, that's the remit. So all these little bits where there's a bit of rust showing through, all I'm going to do now is dab this built hamber rust treatment on, because it might start some of it coming out. Again, that's because at this stage, it'll only take another 10-20 minutes to run around and dab all these bits. And that's minimal cost, but it might stop some of it bleeding through. Then I'm going to sand off or key up what's the rest of the paint. You know, some of these, like there's a trough here where it was running out. We can only do what we can do. And then I'm going to tosh over the entire car, one coat of primer. And then I'm going to tosh it all over in gold. And just see if I can push that front out slightly. Okay, this is the dent. I've just got that with a bolster. I'm just going to try and squeeze it against the strut, because this will only need, I'm only going to like go eek, squeeze it out a little bit with this Porta Power, just so it's not so bent. I'm not fixing this damage. I'm just spending, because I've got the gear, I'm spending 10 minutes pushing it out so it's a bit better. There you go, takes longer to get the gear out. I could spend probably another hour getting it really nice, but I've spent 10 minutes longer getting the gear out, but it's 90% less bent. So that's the remit. I'm just going to pick these pot rivets out and then carry on sanding the rest of the bodywork to key it up. This is the basic level of prep we're doing. This is a 240 disc. Come back to these after I've primed it and after I've painted it, and you can see in detail how it shows up when you don't do it properly. Right, this is just above the right hand rear wheel arch. So this is a sort of happy compromise, which is literally just whiz up and down it with a DA. The more you can sort of feather this out, the less obvious it's going to be. I've just taken that badge off and picked this off, and you get, there's bits of paint stuck under there from the last sort of blowover paint job. So not going to be the first Stetson holder to toss this over. But yeah, so I'll be doing these, stuff like this a little bit. I'll just dink it with a hammer, put a bit of feather over there, smooth it over. This again, I will just feather that out, put a skim of feather in it, flat it so it's flat, and then just do a couple of localised bits of primer, because I don't think I've got that much primer. I might just do a rub joint, stick something behind there to stop it falling out. Again, I can cut a bit out and I can do an invisible repair on that. But then you also got to do an invisible pair up here. You've also got to do one there. Then you got to do one there. Then you got to do all that front bit of the valance where it's got holes behind the enamel plate. Then that bit there. Then that bit there. And then you go, oh no, well I'll put a new panel in. And then if you do that, you've got to start drilling this out. And then it turns in to doing one thing properly turns into £1,000 worth of metalwork. We're not in a position to do that on this car, so it's not going to happen. So it's one of those things where you have to put up with, you know, basically make the best out of the hand we're dealt. So I know I'll probably get ripped in the comments for this, but still, people who have done this will know when the people are making particular comments, those people who are ripping stuff to bits, people who know, you can tell when people are commenting in a way and they're critical, and you can just tell that they've never done it themselves. Because otherwise they'd be going like, ah, yeah, been there, know what you mean, been there. You can't have everything. So, yes, we'll see. This one I'm doing a happy compromise. Years ago, Practical Classics magazine would have just told you to scrunch up a load of aluminium mesh and fill it over. I am actually probably going to cut a bit of this and then tack weld a bit of metal either end, just so it's got a bit of strength to it. But in an ideal world, I've got other spare doors up there, but I haven't got time, and the customer hasn't got the money on this particular car. He's got another car that he needs to do to swap the door. If you end up swapping the door, I'm probably going to swap the bonnet anyway, because that's got holes in. But you swap the doors, you swap the boot, where does it end? The cut-off point has to be somewhere. And so, well, that's how I've decided to go about it. Yeah, right, we'll see. I kept telling myself I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to end up taking the little door locks out, just because it's a pain to try and tape round them and paint round them, and it'll just crack off like it has done before from the previous person who painted this over. You can see it's been painted a couple of times, so you got to do, if you can see that round there, there's a little metal cage that's got to be sort of unclipped. Okay, we got these out, but it's taken like 20 minutes to get these out. You see there's like the little cage that goes around the back of the lock. It's just fiddly to get it off the lever, but you can see the leftover bits of flaky rust and bits of filler that squirted out of the inside of there when whoever painted it before filled that in. Obviously it's rusted through a bit more badly. So I'll try and do a best I can do in 10 minutes kind of job. Right, that one's almost straight. This one's still got a kink, so I'll just push that out a bit more. Right, there you can see the little crease in there. So anyway, it's a bit closer. Well, maybe a little thicker thickness, so inside, yeah, similar. Splitting hairs, no one's really going to notice. It's better than it was, so that'll be fine. Alright, you can see the gold overspray from before where it was masked off, so just going to clean that off, paint all the way up the line, and then clean out this ridge to get the dust out. I've seen this where someone's taped over it before as a bit of overspray, so I'm just going to, again, this is the little things that even when you want to do a quick job, you've got to get them out, because otherwise when you're spraying it with the gun, it will just blow dust everywhere. So you've got to just try and sort of get in there. Take the old stuff off like that, and then tuck something under the rubber, because we just want to paint that.
Because I didn't want to have to go and tell their parents that they died. That's what.
There you go. Holy, holy.
It always happened to me, right?
If I don't do it, it'll just be blowing off. Right, a bit of a high bit there, so I'm just going to see if I can tap this out a bit.
And I have been having.
Well, you can see the high bit was there. This is a bit better. Really, there's filler in here and there's filler under here, I think. Looking at it, I think it's slightly different gold from the rest. And this wing, you can see it's sort of going up in this sort of wizened, blotchy kind of thing. So I reckon it was painted, and then at some point it's had this sort of scrape along there or whatever it was. And it's been repaired, and this wing's been painted, and that's why it's sort of weathered differently to the rest, shall we say. So, I mean, short of stripping all the paint off of this and the filler, then stripping it all off the inside as well, then messing about, beating it, etc., I could be going in for another 5 hours, or well, not 5 hours, but you know, you create more stuff, because what you do on that then leads on to the next thing. Do this, do that, yada yada yada. On top of everything else, I'm going to have to, I think, cut the losses at that time I've spent, which is all of about, I don't know, 10 minutes. I'm just going to put a skimmer filler all the way along it, fill the rest, and cover it up. Same with that bit on there. It would just be the dent in the door, the holes in the bottoms of the doors, and we will make do and see. I've got a feeling the paint's probably going to end up reacting anyway. It might just turn out to be a complete waste of time, but still, fingers crossed. So it's 5 o'clock on Tuesday. I've just put some of this finer filler on the bits to just help blend these bits in. Again, in an ideal world, you want to clean that up, paint the whole thing with epoxy primer, or take it to bare metal, then paint the whole thing with epoxy primer, then do yada yada yada. I mean, the boot, well, you see bits of dust fell out then. It's rusty at the bottom. But if I start changing the boot, you change the door, I'm already changing the bonnet because I've got that one now. It goes from doing a mate a favour to sort of, you know, ABC all the way to the end and see where we get. But everything is relative. So, going to flat these bits down. Give the little bits a coat of primer. Epoxy primer over the rusty bits where I put the rust treatment. Gentle flat them again, not too much. Again, sort of close enough, you know, better than an ugly rusty patch is acceptable. Well, on this job it is. Because it's better than doing nothing at all. So, and I'm doing it on a budget materials wise. So yeah, so I'll probably dot spray just the bits I need to do. I've got a bit of gold paint left over from a Mercedes, so I'll probably spray that over the primer because I think the top coat I got is a bit thin. So it'll help disguise the colour change, and then we'll toss the whole lot over in gold. Hopefully it won't react, and well, it will be what it will be. Right, the bonnet really needs a few hours on its own. I'm afraid it's not going to get it, so you know where these funny lines are, and we'll have a look after it's painted. I'm really just going to give it a once over with 240, and it'll have to do. Right, slowly getting there. I'm still on day 3 of a 1.5 or 2 day thing. Anyway, just mixed up some epoxy primer. I'm just going to brush it on, because I've found that when you get some of these cars that basically have a cheap blowover, you don't really get any paint on this inner lip. So I'm going to paint the lower edges round here, the bottom of here, and probably the bottom of the sills. And again, because the paint's a bit thin, I'm just going to paint this with epoxy primer so it's nice and coated, and probably put some the sill covers that should go back on it on afterwards. So we're just brushing some of like the vulnerable areas here and here. Okay, nearly there. Day 4 of a quick whatever mess around. You can see how patchy it is with all the older coats. This pink stuff is the original factory primer. Multiple coats and stuff all over it, so I just hope that when I put some paint on it, it doesn't all pickle and go horrible. So we shall see. Okay, so I've been off for a few days. Anyway, this has been drying a few days. It's Monday morning and I painted it, what was it, Thursday morning. So Just that, you know, this is where quick jobs turn into more jobs. You can see there's a bit of a shadow on that front wing there, not quite even. Little bit there. Couple of little dots there on that front door. Obviously that needs something in it. There's quite a few little bits like this, but some of it, I mean, it hasn't really showed up. The bits where I put bits of filler, it's relatively flat. Again, that just needs sanding down or something just to smooth it off, to stop those sort of, what do you call it, whirly lines in it or something. Hopefully this will come out on the camera. That was the bit that was down to bare metal. That was down, that was all sort of feathered in, so that might not be too bad. The same with the wheel arch. A little bit in there, both sides. That should smooth out. The boot, I deliberately left the lights off in here, so this will show up a little bit better because you can see the shadow sideways. But again, I am sort of limited, and this is a big border on that edge of filler. That was one of the last bits I did. I just whizzed across it with the DA, but that won't take long to sort it out, hopefully. But I mean, like I say, chasing these little niggles, it all adds more and more time on, more and more time. Again, you can see the sort of shadow underneath, but it looks flat-ish. So I've got, I'll show you in a minute. Oh, there's that scratch on there. So again, a couple of bits on there need smoothing out. Big dent there. I don't know whether to do that. I don't know why I didn't notice that before, but my conscience will probably make me fill over this. But again, it just adds more time. Little bits like that. But again, the wing generally doesn't look too bad. Couple little digs in there. So that's that. Right, that was the epoxy primer I used up on there. There was probably, I don't know, 3/4 of a tin, which managed to sort of do the whole car. But you can see on that other thing, the roof has come out sort of patchy where you can see the lines up and down it. But it helps show up what's sort of flat and what's not. That's that bit in the middle, that funny rust bit. These are the two bits at the edge. So although you can see a little bit on there, hopefully might just be able to make that a bit flatter. So I'll do that by hand with 600 or something, go through it, and the bit in the middle, put some of this, I got some of this new fine filler, some dolphin glaze. I haven't used it before, but again, this is sort of a test bed really. I meant to actually say in one of the other things, sort of a test bed, because I've got to paint this Hillman Hunter, this GLS, which has been here. Now that is having more like sort of invisible mending bits, a little bit on the wing there that I've got to do. And I've got a bit of this left over from another job, so it's about time I might as well use it up. So this should be enough in here to go over the car completely again. Then I can flatten that off, and it should be a reasonable base for the gold. Right, now the bonnet. You can see there's a few digs in here. Again, I can just go around. It's almost one of those things where you go, oh, well, by the time I've got dotted bits of filler in all these little smidge bits, I might as well have just sanded all the paint off. And there's no easy right, wrong way to do this when you're trying to do it this way. The answer is every car should have a bare metal respray. But if that was the only options, then loads of cars would never ever get they wouldn't get, I mean, you think of how many cars from the 70s would only have got, if they didn't get half a respray, or if they didn't get like a cheesy job, they wouldn't have limped on for another 5 years, and then they wouldn't have crossed that border from being scrap to being collectible. They just would have disappeared. So, yeah, so I'm just trying to do the best with the time and money available. Right, just going to run one of these pads over everything. It's says it performs like a 600 but cuts like 320. So, and it's sponge. Right, it's just about this much. And that's enough to go from sort of roughish, where it was that dusty paint over, to sort of smooth to the touch. So that'll be okay for another coat of primer. So here's the bonnet. I've just DA'd it off with that soft pad. You can see all the little stone chips. I've put a bit of that dolphin glaze filler in to tidy it up. Again, yeah, it could be better, but I have to draw the line somewhere. This is as good as it's going to get. Gone through over a few of the other bits. I did fill that in, filled the door in, filled that dent in there. What it will come out like, who knows. So yeah, gonna give it a coat of primer. So, right, this is dry. I'm just going to see if I can paint this gold. It's just 600 on Abranet. And it will show up here on the light, but it's just, it's getting it reasonably flat. Well, there's a couple of flaws in it, but I'm going to have to put up with a lot of these, I think. I don't know if you can see this in here, but there's a sort of a patch about that big, or sort of there, and it's funny tiny little holes appeared in it. It's like rough. I'm going to see if I can see if they'll fill in with a bit of that dolphin glaze. But ultimately, I'm running out of time. Yeah, a bit of those holes on there, look. If I can get it in the light. All sort of speckled on the top. That's where I think this might react, but I don't know, there ain't really a lot I can do about it. Oh, I've sorted out a couple of bits. Now there still seems to be like these little nigs and holes that have, I don't know if they're just showing up because I'm crap at this job, or because I missed them, or because whatever, the primer's sunk or something since I painted it and put it in the sun. Who knows? Right. Right, I'm just going to toss this over because of space, and then I can do the rest of the car tomorrow. Hopefully I won't get gold paint on the roller, but still, it's my roller. It's not really windy, so I'm hoping that I can just do this quickly and leave it overnight. Well, it's not sort of too bad, but you can see that patch there where I rubbed it down a bit too much. This goes to show, this is because I put a little bit of filler in there because there was a little dink like that there, and so I put a bit of that dolphin filler, but probably put a bit too much, so I flattened it off and then it rubbed the primer off, and then you're really back to square one. So sometimes if you have bits like that, it's probably better just to leave them, you know, which is why you get imperfections like that in sort of cheap quick jobs, because you can often just do more sort of harm than good, and then the overall effect when you're stood over here, is you don't really notice that little scratch, but you notice the sort of patchiness on it. So maybe I'll do another coat of gold of that if I've got enough paint left after doing the car, and we'll well, hopefully maybe it'll come out a bit, I don't know, we'll see. Okay, we got a sheet over the roller. Feather in some of those funny little dots that have appeared there and there, so it's a bit smoother. Again, because I haven't got much primer on it at all, this is when you try and do half the job and then that messes you up down the line. So really, everything needs flattening off, all the filler needs to be done best you can on top of the epoxy primer, and then you need probably 2 or 3 coats of that green TI all over it, and then flat it all off with 600 in an ideal world. But I keep saying in an ideal world, but it isn't. This is me making it up as I go along. So yeah, wish me luck. Gonna top it up with bits of primer in between. Now a mate of mine who is a painter, he was giving me a bit of advice on the way, not on this one, but on the Orange MX5 that I painted a couple of months ago. I'll do another video on that because I'll probably put them out at the same time. He recommended these America Gold Soft. Come in a big box, but you just sort of tear off a bit, but these sort of sand quite nicely, comes up smooth. So this is just to get the roughness off the I don't know if that comes out on the camera, but you can hear the difference. But again, this is to basically just yeah, smooth off the primer a bit. I've touched in that bit of the back wing, that little bit there, and that little bit on the roof there. So just going to do this, blow it all off, mask the wheels up, and crack on. Right, I don't know if this will show up, but I'll try it. You can see these little slight dimples on there and roughness. Remember, this is only 1 coat of primer, so you can't afford to sort of go through it. See, I'm almost getting pale there. Literally, it's just to sort of flat it off a little bit. It feels smooth, but when there's still these dimples that are everywhere in the paint, yeah, really this needs to be bare metal. But like I keep saying, beggars can't be choosers. So I'll dust it off, degrease it, and away we go. So, this is what I find when you're doing stuff and I've lacquered it, and then you suddenly look and you think, oh my god, I've got a big bare bit where there isn't any bloody paint on it. I sort of got it in there, so now I've got to get the dregs out of the tin and just go squirt, and then lacquer it and squirt the other side. looking too bad. Hopefully I haven't missed any areas, but just a quick pointer right before I take this off. This is how much paint you end up on tyres. So mask off your wheels if you haven't done it before. Don't think, oh yeah, it'll be all right, because you will get paint on them. And it's a lot easier to wrap a wheel in newspaper with a few bits of tape, but do it well, otherwise it'll blow off as you're painting. It's a lot easier to mask it off than it is to try and get the paint off after. So, there we go. Don't know if it will come out on the camera. There's a bit patchy on that door. And I think I might have missed a bit at the edge of this roof here. But I've basically run out of paint, and I think if I try and paint that in, I'm probably just going to end up with like a mismatch here, and it will look like some ugly squirt, a bit like that patch on the bonnet. So I'm just going to have to make do with that. It's a bit patchy there, but again the bumper's going to go on, so that will disguise a bit of that. The sill trim will go along the bottom, so that will maybe hide that a bit, I suppose. You can still see the marks behind there. You can still see a little bit there where it went through the paint. So, well, I'll fit it back up. And, yeah, see what it looks like after. Yeah, and put windscreen back in. So, would you pay the money? Don't know. Right, luckily got some of these brand new cages. This is the fiddly ass stuff that takes the time. Right, we finally got the test windscreen rubber to test that was sent here a long while ago. What's the date on there? April 24. It's now June 25. But this is the first opportunity I've had to do it. Right, so you get the windscreen and the insert, or windscreen rubber and the insert. So you put the rubber around the screen and then feed this stuff around the corner. Right, now with an assistant you pick it up and just lay it on the car. Make sure you got the rubber all the way around the edge. Right, I'm going to swap sides. Lay the bottom of the rubber inside the channel here. So you sort of try and start the bottom off already. Only to go to you a bit. Nearly there. Right, I'm just going to get this board out of the way. So, and then you pull the string from the inside and then slowly try and tuck it all over. Right. Slowly got to work the string out. At the same time as the assistant stops it popping out. Oh, just for your info, this is the 2-pack lacquer that I used. Right, okay, right, this is a quick recap just to show you the bits. I printed off the pictures, so I will add them in between. So, firstly, this one picture, right, that scrape was by Jim, who called it on the door. This one, I can't believe I missed that. I don't know why it's just sort of just doesn't show up in the light when it's like that. Anyway, for whatever reason, classic Schoolboy Error, that looks pretty rough as guts, and all it needed was a running over with the DA. But still, you live and learn. But I'm glad I took the locks out. Again, because if you leave them in, it takes ages trying to tape around them and tape around the handles, and then the weather just creeps in, and like it was before, it all it fades out, not fades out, cracks around and comes off. So that was worth doing. Right, the bottom of the door bit. It's not brilliant. It's straight. It's better than the holes. The bit where I tack welded them in there, for some reason that actually shows up loads more. I don't know if you can see it on there, but anyway, that's the bits that were in the lacquer. But again, it's better than an ugly hole. The boot lid, generally, at a glance, standing here, it's okay. For some reason, I did leave a dent in there, which only really showed up after the lacquer. Again, I missed that. There's a couple of little edges on the filler there, if you're picky, that could have been sanded out more. Again, like I say in the comments, it needs 2 coats of primer, it needs flattening and filling in between, and then more primer. But like you say, you get what you pay for. Yeah, those bits that were just on the top, I don't know if that really shows up there. You can sort of see them a little bit in the light, but generally at a glance, better than those rough bits. Bit that was halfway down the wing, and the wheel arch, they're actually all right, and the bit on that shoulder there, that doesn't really notice at all. You can see a slight line in there. Again, a few chips on the edge, but I didn't start doing that like deliberately, because I would have ended up doing all the inside, and you know, again, I keep saying it, it's like a where does it end? Right, main criticism on this side is the paint's a bit thin. Again, if it was a paying job, I would have spent more time on it and I would have got more paint. So that's the lesson. But the bottom of the door, it's straight, it's not ugly. Right, the lower wing, there's that bit there at the top. That bit there at the front. That actually looks all right, considering. That bonnet bit that had the funny patch, you can sort of see that a bit. And again, there's still a few chips and bits and pieces in the edges. One thing, there's quite a bad dent in the front of there. I don't know why I didn't see that, because that would have been sort of quite easy just to put something in there. But again, this is rushing it, trying to do it to a time scale. There's that front corner. In the other corner, it looks right. There is a row of holes behind that. Again, like I said, with the welding bit, if you start doing everything in inverting commas properly, you end up with more and more expense, and then, you know, you'd be balls deep into it, and it would go into far more than the car was worth. Tiny little line there, but that bit looks straight, and it was cracked. If I hadn't done something, it would have come up worse. Now, I did get like these little black things landing in the lacquer, which was a bit annoying. There's a few of them like that. Where they are, they're immortalised. Still, someone might find that in 1,000 years and be able to resurrect some theme park based on insects. Yeah, that funny bit that was in the roof, I did put a skimmer filler in that. If you remember earlier on in the video, I sort of highlighted a patch where it was a bit funny and a bit on the back wing. I did put a skim of the filler in and flat it off, and it took another whatever, you know, 20 minutes, half hour, but it was worth it because it made it a bit better. Not brilliant, but a bit better. There is still, again, signs of filler in that little swage line. If you're picky, then you go, oh look, you can see that, you can see that. Again, loads of these little bits, but it would have changed it from like work out the breakdown of costs and put it up at the end. But it changed it into more and more money. Like I said on that scale, I'm going to do an intro video and I'll explain it. And the two bits on the right side, again, that bit at the back there, that's not quite flat. It could be better, but something I was worried about where I've painted stuff in the past. If you can leave a little like bit of filler on top of the rusty bits, that also protects it a bit as well. Again, it makes a car last another few years. Another owner will run it around for 5 years, 10 years. And some of these cars, if they didn't have a that'll do respray, then they just would have been by the wayside and scrapped. There's a rough bit in there. I did try flatten it off, and I was going to polish it, but I didn't actually get round to it, and now I've been stuck doing other stuff. And there's some of these bits in here that might clean up. Windscreen went in okay. A lot of them, they shrink a bit in the corners because it's this is one piece rather than a moulded bit, and the filler needs to be fitted in, but it's in, and it's better than the old one. This trim and stuff, again, this is a bit marked, but I'll polish the top bit. That will polish up all right. These bits on the shoulders there, again, where I missed that bit of paint, that did actually, I managed to get a bit of paint on it and a bit of lacquer on it without it really noticing that I'd messed it up. So that turned out all right. I had to scrape what gold was left in the bottom of the tin just to get enough to squirt over that grey patch that was just along that bit. Right, just a quick look down the side. You can see generally it's not actually too bad. I can see a bit of a shadow there, and I can see a little bit around there where it wasn't quite flat, and on the whole not too bad. You can see it's a bit ripply just above the wheel arch in the light there, and that swage line is a bit sort of wahey waho, but like I say, you get what you know, the result is direct correlation to the time spent. Sorry, just as an afterthought as well for the wings, again, you end up with like mission creep of what do you do with the engine bay. Now, I did another video of a white Fastback I did where various reasons. We took the engine and gearbox out because, anyway, watch the video and explain it why. But stripped the complete engine bay, everything out, you know, servo, pedal box, everything. Took it all to bare metal, resprayed it, and it was lovely, but it cost the money to do it. Now, again, another reason why you end up going, yeah, I don't feel that bad about sort of, not cutting corners, but just having to stop bits on this and going, you know, that'll do kind of attitude is what it is. Because let's say you did do everything perfect, and then someone wants to buy it one day and they open the bonnet and they go, oh, how come that's so ugly, you know? But again, to do this, what do? Do you do the top? Do you do just that bit? Do you do just that bit? Do you do there? Do you do all around it? You have to stop somewhere. And again, like I did on the Orange MX5, the time I spent keying up the inside of the panels, oh mate, it sucks hours out of the day. So I hope you found that useful, or not, I don't know. If you're still watching, then thanks for listening to my rants. Yeah, well, that's about it. I'll meet you in the comments for an argument or not, a thoughtful discussion, let's see. But yeah, the main thing is I think it's a lot happier. I've got to do an engine swap on that, more on that white one, more on this blue one, and that's the GLS, which is going to be respray inside and out. Yeah, this is what I mean about something. At what point do you stop? If you did A, makes sense to do B. If you did B, makes sense to do C. If you did C, makes sense to do D. Blah, 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 blah. Never ends, more and more money, and at no point, you know, it makes sense to stop, but it also makes sense to carry on. But what can you do?